Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Zenith, that podcast that's not infallible. It's just never failed because this week we've watched Assassin.
Written by Rod Beacham.
Directed by David Sullivan Proudfoot.
And aired on November 9th, 1981.
Yeah, so again, interseason era of Doctor Who, but this is Rod Beacham's first and only script for Blake 7.
Yeah, and it's would you call this good? I think this was a good episode.
I was thinking about this when I finished it. I think this episode was good, but the one word I did use to describe this entire episode is lazy.
Really?
I think this episode was lazy. I think acting-wise, directing-wise, editing-wise, I think everyone was just really lazy when they made this story. I feel like there was like a brilliant masterpiece in this script, and I think everybody just really not dropped the ball so much as was just kind of like this wasn't their best foot forward for the script.
I don't think it was everybody. I agree with that, and I would definitely point towards Glynis Barber as a big part of that. And I actually looked up her name, but I forgot who played Peary/Cancer.
Well, so Caroline Holdaway.
Yeah.
I mean, I would point to Paul Darrow as well. Not in every scene, though. There are definitely scenes where Paul Darrow is giving his A game, but there are also definitely scenes where he's really just coasting, It's kind of almost like everyone's just resting on their laurels on this episode, it feels like. And I want to talk about that more while we talk about the plot of this episode, because I'm kind of frustrated by this episode, because again, I can see this masterpiece within the script. I can see it there, and everyone is just they're
on the cusp of
they're on the cusp of greatness, and they're just not quite there. That's my assessment of this episode. And I don't, you don't have to agree, but that's
I mean, I pretty much do. This episode is when I finished this episode, I was and I've been thinking about this for a few weeks in terms of specifically Zenith, where I was all right, it's probably time for Blake 7 to end. Not like I wouldn't like a reboot or a new season or anything. But
yeah, I mean, this episode is our episode on animals, right? Our episode on animals was we just strayed pretty far from the plot. We're kind of just resting on our laurels. I don't want to be too self-deprecating about this, but
yeah, but luckily both this podcast and Blake 7 will be ending soon, or this podcast's coverage of Blake 7.
Yeah.
Blake 7 is already long over. Anyone out there who still thinks they're keeping it alive? You're not. You are. Fans are actually keeping Blake 7 alive, which is good.
Us,
no, yeah, it's good.
Get down to it. That includes us.
Yeah.
So basically, the story opens with Villa actually kind of being the instigating force in the plot, which is
it's
unusual.
Nice for a change, but also Villa doesn't do jack for the rest of the episode, so I can kind of see why they gave him this moment.
Dana too, but Dana does more than Villa, because she does get
Dana has one.
She gets a nice little scene
where
they bring back her kind of antagonism towards Silverland, but then again, she just kind of vanishes.
But this her Kaiser Soze moment. But we'll talk about that scene when we get there, because that was a cool scene.
The final note I have written down for this episode is, wait, where did Dana go?
She's there in the final moments, serving that red
Notice
drink.
how it wasn't, where did Villa go? Because Villa apparently at this point is such an inconsequential character that I didn't really even notice he was gone. But Dana.
Well, right, it opens with Villa. He has intercepted a message from
Aurak has
or something.
intercepted a message, and Villa just happens to be the one nearby when Aurak did it.
And decides to take the credit for it. But it's a coded message. It's Servalan saying something.
She's saying, Domo, the 9th, 5 subjects.
Domo arigato,
and Cancer.
Mr. Robot. What if it was just Servalan singing in the shower or something like that?
Yeah, Villa hasn't even listened to the message. I gather around, I found a message from Servalan, and he plays it, and it's just her going, Domo arigato.
No, it's her singing Distant Star.
In the shower. Avon just gives Villa a menacing look. Avon has a really killer, insult to Villa in just a couple minutes here that I want to bring up. But she's saying, I don't know if she says cancer. She's cancer, Domo, the ninth, 5 subjects. And for a second, I was like, is she giving them all cancer? Is that what's going to happen here? But then, no, it's cancer as in the crab. I should know that because my astrological sign, if you care, is Cancer.
Oh, man, what does that say about you? Okay, no.
I don't know. But I picked up a book on December last year that was like astrological predictions for the entire year of 2018. So I flipped to Cancer and I was like, you will find love in a Scorpio. And I'm like, huh, interesting. So,
I don't believe in any of that stuff.
But Mercury's in retrograde, dude. That means that... I don't know what that means.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
I truly don't believe in any of that stuff. Astrology, throw it in the trash. And I'm not like a hard science type guy, but like I don't believe in it.
I mean, I don't believe it either, but just the way you said that is really funny to me for some reason. But anyway, they kind of talk about this for a second, and Avon's like, yeah, I know of Cancer. And they're like, oh, who is he? And he's like, oh, I don't want to use the word infallible, but he's infallible.
Right. Avon says that he doesn't know what Cancer looks like, his age, anything about Cancer other than what he does, which is that he's an assassin.
Tarrant is like, well, okay, you're not one to use the word infallible. And then Avon says, okay, well, then I won't. He just has never failed. Wow.
I want to bring up this moment also with Dana where right after they hear the message from Servalan, Dana goes like, well, that's just gibberish. It means absolutely nothing. It's like, to you, Dana.
Well, what was nice about this scene is that everybody kind of pitches in. Sulin is the one who says that Domo is a planet where they sell slaves.
Yeah,
Avon's
Sulin.
the one who pops in the Cancer comment. I think Tarrant is the one who points out that there's 5 of them on the Scorpio.
Right.
And also that the 9th is a date. 9th of what? I don't know.
Yeah, Sulin is finally doing stuff, contributing to the story. Even though I would say this is Linus Barber not really giving her all, probably. But still, I mean, it's nice, I guess. Also, we should mention the trend of giving Dana a lot more makeup with every subsequent story. Do you notice that? I mean, it looks like they just...
It is increasing.
Yeah.
And it's like subtlety is key here, guys. You don't need to go that overboard. I remember her makeup, like, I don't remember, I think it was at the start of the season, that was just kind of the blue and aquamarine, and that looked really nice.
Yeah,
and now it's just...
I know we mentioned that. It's like, oh, Dana's wearing like some noticeable, makeup.
Yeah, but that looked like really good in that episode because it like really matched well with her outfit, and now it's like they're gonna go a little overboard.
Yeah.
We should actually mention before we get too far that everybody's outfit has changed as well, in addition to that.
Yeah, and plenty of people have written in, and I've seen this online as well, is like the beginning of Series D outfits are their best outfits, like on the show. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. Going
they
from
got
those
way
to
worse.
This, yeah. And Villa and Tarrant are wearing almost what looks like almost the same thing, I think.
Yeah, Avon's is pretty similar to his previous outfit. It's still all black. It's a different design though.
Yeah.
And just to show you how unmemorable their outfits were, I cannot remember for the life of me what Dana and Sulin's outfits look like.
Sulin's looks pretty similar, if I remember correctly. As for what Sulin's hair is doing,
she's got it down this week.
Yeah.
So, which I was surprised she hadn't done before.
She had, I think. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't remember.
This is where Avon gets in his killer punch to the gut with Villa, because he's like, 5 subjects. You can use your fingers, Villa. Which I thought was just hilarious. I was like, hey, that's not nice. But anyway, we get some wipes. Like, wipes as transitions, which is like a first for Blake's. Actually, no, we've had one wipe before, I think. But this whole episode is just littered with... We have diagonal wipes, we have circle wipes, we have side wipes, and it's like overwhelming.
Again, Series D feels like, what if we made Blake 7... but made it Star Wars.
Yeah, this episode feels very Star Wars, especially with those wipes that really caught me off guard the first time the first one happened. I was like, whoa, wait, was that a wipe? Then it happened again. I'm like, is this episode going to be filled with wipes?
Yeah, the wipes, very Star Wars-esque. The ships, very Star Wars-esque. The
Oh yeah,
reveal-
Serverland's ship is like super Star
Yeah,
Wars.
this is the same ship that she had a couple episodes ago.
But we get a
and
much
it's-
better view
yeah,
of it in this story.
Yeah, we do. Also, the "I am cancer" moment. You know.
I am cancer. Yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away though.
Yeah, I did too.
Although I didn't realize it would be her until Richard Herndahl's character eats it, because I thought it was either going to be her or him. The reason why I thought it could be him is because he...
Oh, really? You thought it was going to be...
Well, because...
What was his name? Nevax?
Well, because there is kind of a Nebrox. There's kind of a dropped plot thread when... I don't want to jump ahead too much, so I won't explain it too much, but when Avon's asking Nebrox for information on Serverland, and he says that she came down to the planet, but then Nebrox says something like, oh yeah, she left yesterday. And he says, you can totally trust me. And then we like cut to Serverland still on the planet. He lies about Serverland leaving, and that to me like caused suspicion on him. Yeah, but as soon as he's introduced. Once he eats it though, it's like, okay, well.
But he's talking about cancer there. And you don't really
I thought
get
he was
that.
talking about Serverland.
No, he's talking about cancer, and then like that's why like retroactively you get that because cancer is Piri, not the whatever the other guy's name was.
Yeah, the guy
so
was
she was the woman in all black. Yeah, the other guy was just an actor sold as a slave, but she was the woman in all black that he was referring to. But it's set up to where you think it's Serverland.
Yeah, but I mean, he says that whole line like, well, you can definitely trust me, Avon.
That's true.
And it's supposed to be made out like he's lying because Serverland also in the story is wearing all black.
Yeah.
But I didn't get that it was supposed to be what is it? Piri?
Piri is her...
Piri.
That's probably just a pseudonym. We'll probably never learn her real name. Maybe it is just cancer.
My name is cancer because I have cancer. Yeah, Avon comes up with this ingenious plan.
Just for him and Villa to go down, but then he enacts it alone.
Well, yeah, because he's like, well, I'm going to get captured by the slavers, and then like we're going to find out what's going on this planet. And they take his teleport bracelet off, as you would expect, because it's a Blake 7 story, and the first thing basically every villain does now is steal someone's teleport bracelet.
This really reminded me of Cygnus Alpha, where Blake goes into the prisons and whatever and rescues Villain Gan and stuff like that.
This really reminds me of Doctor Who, where they had to come up with some nonsense reason why the TARDIS was out of commission every week until they just started to ignore it. It's like they have to come up with a reason why they can't just teleport out of these situations whenever they want.
You know what I mean? This worked. You know, they take the bracelet and stuff like that. Avon is a really good actor in this scene, better than Cancer is at pretending to be an innocent young woman. And you gotta, I just wondered in this scene. You know, you gotta sort of wonder, like, did Avon when Avon was just a computer programmer, like before he got involved in criminal activity, did it ever cross his mind that he would be at the far reaches of the galaxy, like doing all this stuff, you know?
No. He wanted to just get a lot of money and then retire.
Yeah.
She was cursing Blake right now. I was like, damn it, Blake got me into this shit. Now I'm going to be caught by the slave gang.
He got himself into this when he decided to embezzle money. Or actually just rob banks.
Yeah, it wasn't embezzling, he was just robbing.
He was just robbing.
Hey, it would have worked too if it weren't for those meddling kids. And I mean,
wasn't for that
guy who
meddling
caught him.
Federation. That meddling sellout, Anna.
Well, Anna
dies, so
well,
she
Anna
gets her
dies.
just desserts.
But Anna wasn't the reason why he ends up getting caught in the end, because they end up finding him, if you'll remember back to like the second episode, Spacefall, where he was like, oh yeah, they like kneel him because they're like, you're the second best computer programmer in the galaxy, and Blake's like, well, who was the first? And then Villa, I think, is like, the one who caught him. So.
Yeah, isn't that like somewhat retcon with Anna, where she's like an agent or something like that? And they bring up the whole thing of like he was trying to get his visa or whatever.
Kind of, but he actually escapes in that.
In
that little historical segment, he gets his visa and leaves and is able to escape.
Yeah, all right.
He gets away that time, but not for long. Federation always finds him. Although there is a kind of contradictory thing where Anna's like, man, I really thought you were dead. And he's like, I was in freaking Federation captivity for like a month. Jesus, Anna, don't you keep up with the Federation activities?
God, Anna.
God, Anna.
How could you be so stupid?
How could you be so dense? Anyway, there are a lot of weird, like, kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily, like, sexist, but, like, lines in the story that, like, talk about gender roles.
Yeah, there are.
And I think this is, like, one of the first episodes of Blake 7 to use the word bitch.
Multiple
Like,
times.
multiple times.
And that's why we pointed out, because it's multiple times.
Everybody's a bitch in the story. You're a bitch. I'm a bitch. She's a bitch.
Oprah. God.
We're going to get
a car. There. You get a car. Oh, whatever.
Avon gets captured by the slavers and he meets Richard Herndon.
Who knew this is where the first Doctor ended up?
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of caught off guard to see him there, and I think it's one of those cases where like a show gets an actor who's like really famous to guest star on the show, and you're like, "Hey, I know that actor," kind of thing.
Blake Simpson
he does a pretty good job.
Some pretty big-ish names.
I mean, I did the same thing with Colin Baker. I was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird to see Colin Baker in this."
Yeah, what's weird to me is I haven't really seen Richard Herndon in anything other than him playing the first Doctor after Hartnell passed away. Mm-hmm. So it was weird seeing like.
This was pre that.
No, like his look that's just his look. That wasn't like done to make him look like the first Doctor / William Hartnell. That's just how he looks. Like
I thought it was William Hartnell for a second. I was like, is that? No, it can't because this is 80. This is what 82, 81. And I was like, oh, it's Goodman Herndon.
Yeah,
going about his business.
But he does a great job, I think.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
he's one of the best actors in this story. He's one of the few that isn't being really lazy with everything.
Yeah.
The actor who plays Cancer, what's his name now? I looked him up because I recognized him. John Wyman or Woman. He was in the James Bond movie, and now I'm forgetting which one it was. It was one of the later ones, but he played kind of the villain in one of the later James Bond movies.
Yeah, I was going to say he looks like someone who's often typecast as a villain. And I've never seen him in anything else, but just based on his looks.
Interesting that I recognized him because when he's in that James Bond movie, he didn't have the like beard and facial hair that he had in this. So
it's interesting.
But I just thought it was interesting to note that because he's actually kind of a big actor as well, I guess. But basically, Nebrox explains that every slave only gets put up for auction twice, and then they kill them because if you don't get bought after the second time, I guess they just don't see your value anymore. That's what Nebrox says. And he's like, this is my second time going up for auction. You got to help me, dude.
And Avon says, only if you help me get my bracelet back.
Well, first he's like, well, I'll think about it. And Nebrox is like, well, then I won't help you. And then Avon's like, okay, I promise I'll take you with me.
Right.
And they get to the auction, which is just in the middle of the desert, a.k.a. the quarry that the BBC found nearby.
It's a quarry, right? I mean, I think the idea is that this area is supposed to be desert.
Yeah.
I think you can kind of see the tops of the trees poking up behind the horizon.
But it's effective. I think it works.
No, I think it does work.
Because I thought it was a desert at first. I was like, oh, it's a good desert.
I thought it was done at the beach at first, but I'm pretty sure it is just a quarry somewhere. Or like a disused one that's now sand or something like that.
Classic BBC and the quarries. When are we seeing the quarries coming back to Doctor Who?
Oh, God. Please, no. The new series of Doctor Who actually does have just sort of like barren area. I think most of those are actually sets though, but like just barren planets.
Yeah. I was just all of a sudden thinking back to Hand of Fear, the only time that the quarry actually played an actual quarry. Anyway, Avon goes up for auction. Servalan happens to be there.
Yeah.
She buys Avon.
Well, we get some backstory about like who the people who are buying these slaves are. Yeah. And they're sort of just like proxy dealers. They're like except for Servalan. Each one of these people represents like, I think Servalan says like 50 other people somewhere else, and they're all calling in or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just get this panning shot of all these people, and this seriously was like, I hate to rail into this, but like this seriously was just like, all right, what do we have in the closet that we can pull out and have these guys wear?
Call the BBC costume department and tell them to send the 5 to 6 least destroyed costumes they've got.
Yeah. Because I mean, it was just so they looked so mismatched, is what it was.
I mean, I think it kind of worked though, because I think it kind of represented that these are people from like all different quadrants of the galaxy coming to this auction. That's kind of how I saw it, and I didn't really have a problem with this, in my opinion.
I didn't have a problem with it. It just stuck out to me as like, all right, the reasoning behind this is probably like, all right, what do we have in that closet over there? Pull it out. You guys are wearing that.
Again, I just kind of saw it as this was like representative of the fact there were like multiple cultures and sections of the galaxy represented at this auction. But this is where we get one of the first scenes where I'm like, man, everybody's just really lazy in this, because Avon, so Nebrox is able to slip the bracelet off of the head, the kind of slave driver's arms.
Yeah, because he pretends to run up and be like, come on, you gotta buy me. This is my second time at auction. You have to, man. Come on.
Yeah, it looks like the only two slaves up for auction are Avon and Nebrox.
Well, there's those other ones who, like, when commotion breaks out, they make a run for it. I don't know what happens to them, but yeah.
Probably dead, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Avon calls up to Scorpio and is like, hey, beam me up. And then Nebrox says, no, you promised you gotta take me with you. And then Avon's like, never mind, someone come down you with an extra bracelet instead. And they're like, you're confusing us, Avon, but okay.
I thought for sure, from the moment Avon mentioned this plan, I thought for sure he was just gonna like look at Nebrox, laugh in his face, and get beamed up by himself.
Yeah, me too. Especially since he just like killed Dr. Grant.
Yeah.
It was Dr. Grant, right? That was her name? I don't remember her name now. In Star Drive, the doctor at the end. Whatever her name was.
I don't remember her name either. But no, he saves Nebrox.
But, like...
kind of an old Avon moment.
There's this scene where it's like... This scene should not have made it to screen as it was shot. Because what happens is Avon... So the two kind of guards are, like, knocked down on the ground. And it seems like they cut in the scene into the episode too early in the filming tape, because they're just standing still, and then Avon lifts his bracelet and talks into it, and then as soon as he finishes, the guards are kind of still standing still, and then they start moving. And it seems to me like this, like everybody thought this was framed completely differently to how it was framed. It seems to me like the guards didn't realize they were on camera when Avon was talking, because they're just standing still, like right up until the moment that he stops talking, and then they attack him, which is just like, really? Like, it could have worked if they like just zoomed in on Avon so they were standing off screen, so that, on the footage it looks like the guards like just happened to attack Avon when he finishes talking. Also, again, they have that like, it's not even like a second, it's like half a second where just at the beginning of the shot they're all just standing still waiting for something to happen. Like, and that happens multiple times throughout this episode. Things
it's
like
bad.
That.
It's bad. Kind of reminded me of Series A, where it happened a couple times in Series A, I think, where there's just someone sort of standing in the background of like the Liberator set, or just, any set really, and they're just kind of standing there not realizing that they're on camera, and they walk on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's bad, and it happens multiple times. There's also another moment I want to call out for being similar, which it's a shot. I don't remember exactly when this happens or what's said, but it's a shot of space, and there's a voiceover from Servalan, and she says something, and then there's a 1 or 2 second pause, and then she finishes the line or adds onto the line. It's really
I know
awkward.
What you're talking about. And there's a couple moments with Servalan too where she's like on camera but not saying anything yet, and then says her line, and it's not it's not just Servalan. Avon does this at least once more in this episode. So, like I said, it's just like they needed to trim the fat around the edges. Someone in the editing bay needed to trip these clips a little closer to the to what they were shooting for.
Yeah.
And someone needed to frame them a little bit better. Freaking David Sullivan, Proudfoot.
Maybe you need to fill up a time slot, and they're like, yeah, that edited version that we made and had ready to go? Yeah, we can't use that.
Yeah, add some extra frames from before the things happen. Okay.
Extend the footage and have Jacqueline Pierce tack on an extra bit of a line.
Maybe that's what happened. The line was supposed to end, and then later on they're like, no, we'll just include this extra part of the line that she said.
Anyway, they get back up to the Scorpio.
Yeah, they get up.
And this is where Nebrox starts living the life, man. I mean, I don't know if you noticed this, but he goes from slave to prince and or royalty in seconds flat. I mean, he walks in, he's wearing like this extravagant robe, holding a glass of, it's not adrenaline soma, it's something else.
Wine.
Wine, probably.
It's that same red wine that Villa drank a whole bottle of in Rescue.
Yeah.
They're like all cheersing to this because they're like, the exact plan Avon came up with, which is admittedly kind of insane. He was like, if we kill Servalan, then Cancer won't have anyone to work for, so he won't kill us. That's the plan.
Yeah, but remember, Avon also has to kill Servalan himself. So this is all
Dana
part of
comes
this.
down and she's like, Servalan! And pulls her gun on Servalan, but then she gets attacked by a guard, and then by the time she throws the guard off, Servalan's like running away and they get teleported up, and Dana's like upset about this, and there's a miniature temper tantrum. She's like, I almost had her.
I really like this. This is the best moment of like Dana and Servalan. Like, this is what their relationship should have been since Servalan killed Hal.
Yeah. This
is
is
never
like
really done
my favorite
this way.
scene of this episode because it really like drives home that characterization of Dana as like having almost a vendetta against Servalan for killing her dad.
Yeah.
You know, rightfully so. I not necessarily right. I don't know. Killing people is right, but understandably so. But until this point, we've only had maybe one or two other scenes where Dana really gets into it like this,
and it's always been sort of a subdued anger. So you can kind of see this as a break from that. So I can understand why, like, if you think this is out of place, like, it makes sense,
right? Why
that would be the case. But I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. And
you think of Dana as like, she's always mentioned as being a teenager. So, maybe that sort of subdued anger or acceptance even isn't really appropriate for her. Maybe I think this reaction is more appropriate for Dana's character.
Yeah, possibly. Avon has a very sly look on his face when Villa mentions Servalan at the beginning of this episode, because he wants to kill her himself.
Is this the scene where Dana brings in those glasses of wine? I guess it's just wine, glasses of wine, and then hands them to everyone except Villa? That was funny.
Yeah, well, we all know how Villa gets when he drinks.
Yeah.
Don't know why Series D is making Villa out to be such an alcoholic. Kind of weird.
I mean, he always was one.
Was he?
Yeah.
The only time it was ever mentioned was when they went to Space City that one time.
It was a couple times.
I'm going to go drink and gamble and stuff.
Yeah, that's another thing. There's a line in this story where Villa says, I never was much for games. I was like, really? Really now?
What about Gambit, Villa? You forgetting Gambit? I just remember there's no treasure room on the Scorpio, so they wouldn't be able to go gamble anyway.
Yeah, true. Was Villa faking, like... Wait, now I'm forgetting. Was it Villa or Avon who challenged the chess master in Gambit? It was Villa, right?
It was Villa, because Avon has to feed him all the directions from
right,
Aurak
right.
through the... Because there's also that scene where Avon spits his food out when it's revealed that Villa's challenging the speed chess champ.
I wonder if Villa is like a chess master himself because he's supposed to be like a genius and he was just faking it and was like pretending he was about to...
That would be the moment where I'd stop faking it if faking it's going to get me killed.
Hey man, he's dedicated.
He's willing to die.
He's willing to die for this ruse.
Wow, it's extreme. That's hardcore. I didn't realize Villa was so hardcore.
Anyway,
yeah,
I really like this break because this harkens back to like Series A and B where there's more of an A plot and B plot. In the episodes.
What was that?
It was a pun.
Yeah, but
A plot and B plot. It's a response to a pun. I'm not gonna like laugh out loud.
LOL.
I'm not gonna lamau out loud at a pun. Just erase that. I don't want to go on the record as having said that.
No, I'm gonna leave that in now. You're not gonna lamau. A lamau. You're not gonna raffle copter.
I'm not gonna roll on the floor raffling.
Department of Redundancy Department.
I'm not gonna loll out loud at a pun. I'm just gonna sort of
All right.
I regret all of what I just said, by the way.
Zenith, a podcast of regret.
We should just pull a Chaucer at the end of this and redact everything. Like how Chaucer at the end of the Canterbury Tales redacts his entire life's work, like all of his writing. It's just like in the last sentence, by the way, I redact all of this.
Get to the final episode of this podcast and then just delete it off the internet.
For limited time to access Zenith. Put it up on like, I don't know, put it up for sale for like thousands.
We wouldn't be able to get
we wouldn't
thousands.
make any money. I would never want to make any like money from podcasts anyway. You know,
the only money I'd want to make from this is to like just pay for the hosting for all this, so that it'd be a monetarily neutral
even
hobby.
That,
but
even that, I mean,
even the amount
honestly,
we're paying is like a reasonable rate. So.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather pay for that. Like, it's not like I can afford it, so I'd rather pay for it out of pocket. It just rubs me the wrong way, like when people set up Patreons for podcasts and stuff like that. Which I mean, I understand why people do it, but yeah.
I mean, I understand it more now that we've burned ourselves out doing 2 weekly podcasts for a year for free. Not even for free. We're paying you for you to listen to it. Well, we're not paying you directly, but we're paying for you to listen to this, basically. Anyway. They see Cancer's ship, which has a big crab on the side, which is kind of how I realized it was Cancer's ship, because it was like, oh, it's a crab, it's Cancer. Nobody in this episode seems to pick up on that. Astrology might have gone out of fashion in the future.
Maybe. I mean, Cancer obviously knows what's going on with the crab logo and you know, Cancer. But he also has a crab logo on his shirt. It's a little on point, but that was just, you know, the fake Cancer. I forget, does the real Cancer have a crab logo? I think she does. I don't remember. I don't know.
No, but that little crab spider thing transforms into like a crab pin.
Yeah, that's what it is.
They land on the ship. Avon and Tarrant land, which is an interesting pairing that I want to see more of, actually. I like the Avon-Tarrant pairing. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I do too. Especially with Tarrant trying to be in control and being so, like, not in control.
Being so incompetent that Avon just slaps him down, like, verbally massacres him every time he tries to take command.
But we see sort of this guy standing off in the corner, and when Avon and Tarrant, that is, get into the...
Well, he set up like a dummy on the bridge. He set up like a dummy, and they go to attack the dummy.
A Travis dummy. Kidding.
Well, that was what I was thinking.
Brian Croucher's Travis outfit.
Well, so that's what I was thinking for the Terry Nation thing for this. I was like, well, maybe Cancer would be Travis if Terry Nation wrote this, and he would bring Travis back. But we'll talk about that at the end.
I don't know how that would work, but we'll get into that.
He brought freaking Davros back all the time. No, but
like not even bringing Travis back. But oh yeah, I guess he could. Well, we'll get into that.
We'll talk about that later. That's just something that I was hypothesizing when I was thinking about Terry Nation writing this. But then Cancer's like, haha, I got you. But then he gets attacked by this woman. I'm not sure of her age. She's of indeterminate age. Yeah,
she sort of just looks like kind of weakly knocks him out. And it's not the first like really weak and poorly delivered like hit in this story. Looking at you, Sulin. But like that slap, and RG mentioned this in her email, that slap was just pathetic. Like, come on, put at least a minimal amount of effort into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been slapped before for acting purposes on stage, and I just told the person slapping me to just like actually slap me. It'll be funnier if you just like slap me full force. It'll be really funny. And people laughed, and yeah, they did. And my glasses flew off my face when they slapped me, and it was pretty funny, like I suspected it would be. Yeah, so Cancer gets knocked out and we meet Peary, who is ostensibly a slave that Cancer bought for presumably sex.
Yeah. Wasn't going to say that, but yeah, I was going to imply it.
Sex.
Like, yeah.
Well, because she says something like, he was going to celebrate with me when he had killed you. So...
Right. But she says all he's done, like, after bringing her on the ship is just sort of ignore her. So, like, well, that's that, I guess.
Yeah, they're like, well, we'll just wait for Silverland now, and we'll kill her when she comes to find out if Cancer won. And it's like, okay, sounds good.
And how'd you like this set? Because I thought it was really good.
I thought it was really good, and I really liked the lighting later on when Avon is walking through the corridors looking for Cancer. There's like red, orange, and blue lighting in the corridors, which I thought looked really good.
Yeah, this was a great set for Cancer. I almost wish they used this set for Servalan. But in a way, I get it. Like
Servalan
looks
chose
more
practicality on her bridge.
Yeah,
Because this bridge, if you think about it, is pretty impractical. The console's kind of like angled the wrong way.
sort of looks like there's a lounge area just in the bridge, which was true of the Liberator
I was gonna say,
as well.
it's true of the Liberator, but the Liberator's bridge was huge.
Yeah.
Like, that bridge was massive.
We do actually get a better look at Servalan, the interior of Servalan's ship in this.
Yeah.
Much better than we've actually gotten, especially because she walks from one end of it to the other, and we see that Zen computer thing in the background.
Yeah, that Zen-esque computer that's probably way worse than Zen.
Yeah.
Probably on par with Slave in terms of usefulness.
For sure. I mean, if it isn't way worse than Zen, like, come on, what are you doing, Servalan? Like, you should have caught them by now if you have a computer as good as Zen.
Slave doesn't say anything in the story, does he?
I don't think so, no.
Interesting. I think Peter Tottenham's still credited in the credits as Slave, though.
Yeah, it's probably just a standard thing that they do for all the episodes.
Yeah. So, what happens, they lock Cancer up, and Nebrox...
He just decides to, like, go explore or something. I don't really remember.
So what happens is Seabury and Nebrox...
Piri,
sorry. Why do I call it Seabury? Piri and Nebrox decide, against, like, all common sense, that they'd rather stay on Cancer's ship than go back to the Scorpio. And this should have been an immediate red flag. This should have been an immediate red flag to Avon and Tarrant, because Piri's just like, yeah, I'd rather stay here. I feel safer on this ship. This should have been throwing up red flags left, right, and center. And Nebrox also is like, I want to stay because I want to make sure the little girl is all right. He's like, okay, Nebrox. He's like, we share a common bond because we were both slaves. And Avon's like, sure, Nebrox, whatever you want. Look, as soon as we're done here, we're getting rid of you, so...
But they go off to, I think, Cancer's room.
Yeah.
Which just should be another, like,
we should be another red flag been thrown up here.
Especially because this is the scene where I was like, okay, she's Cancer. Because Piri in this scene says some pretty questionable things to Nebrox. I don't remember what they are, but they're very suspicious.
But, what really threw it up to me is like, Cancer gets captured so easily, and immediately in my head I was like, there's no way that's actually Cancer. Like, either Nebrox or Piri is actually Cancer, and this is like part of their plan.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure it was going to be Nebrox for some reason. I don't know why, but then Nebrox completely eats it. I'm like, okay, Piri's Cancer.
Unless Nebrox was the one orchestrating this all from behind the scenes and also orchestrated his own death into this so that he could enact his plan. Headcanon, I'm going with it.
I also thought almost there might be a situation where all three of them are Cancer, and Cancer was like a pseudonym passed between multiple different people.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
was how they kind of built up this legend that Cancer was like infallible and could do all these things because it was actually like multiple people and not just one, which is a concept I've seen in a different show, and I'm kind of forgetting where I saw it before now.
I wasn't going to say this, but I'm just going to say it now that you bring it up, but that was my idea for like an actual, like, all right, let's sit down and write this Serious Time Blake 7 fan fiction. My idea is Blake, it's called Blake 7, and there's 7 different Blakes, and they, I mean, now I'm not going to go through with it because I just said it, and also I'm really lazy and I don't want to write it, but...
Submit it for your fantasy Blake 7 for the end of the show.
I probably am going to do that.
They're waiting for Servalan to show up, but then Nebrox completely eats it, and they're like, that's kind of weird because Su Lin had the key to the door that they were keeping Cancer in, but Nebrox opened the door.
Yeah, you know what? Now that we're discussing this, they should have been alerted far sooner that Piri was Cancer.
Su Lin takes forever to pick up on the fact that she stole the key from her, and she's like, oh, that's it. Piri's Cancer.
Su Lin kind of just, when they go off, she just sits down and has like a good think about all of this. Like they know impending danger is coming for them.
A good thing sometimes can be illuminating.
I think that happens right about now, actually.
Well, yeah, because Cancer's gone MIA, and Avon's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, my new plan is let's just fly this hunk of junk to Xenon base, and then we'll just leave the ship, and then either he can come out of the ship and face us, or he can starve to death in here. And Tann's like, sure. But then they have engine trouble, and they're like, well, that's kind of weird. And then what happens is they decide to go out looking for Cancer, and Peary stays on the bridge. But then Peary leaves. Well, we don't know this, but Peary leaves and knocks out Avon, and also we see a little spider crawling up to Su Lin, and her hand is like on the table. But then she has like an epiphany and like puts her hands up in a legitimate like fashion. And then the spider looks. I don't know how you make like a spider / crab thing look disappointed, but this like spider crab looks really disappointed.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like a little mini crab. It looked almost like a scorpion, actually, rather than a spider or a crab. But
it looked like a spider in this shot, and then later on when she puts it on Avon, it looked like a scorpion. But then out loud, she describes it as a crab, and I was like, "What the hell is this thing?"
You know, I think what it was supposed to be is like, it was a hairpin, right? Like a hairpin that turns in. It's a mechanical like spider thing that also doubles, but like. They obviously couldn't achieve that, so they just had it transition from being like this, you know, obviously inanimate object to this like spider thing.
The transition effect was pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it was cool.
Give him that. Ben Su Lin, well, Peary's like, well, I'm going to kill you now, Avon. And then Sutherland comes on and is like, hey, you know, it's pity you got caught, Avon. Sorry you're going to have to die to Peary like this, to Cancer. But turns out you're not smart enough. She's like, yep, I'm going to kill him now. And then she's like, sorry, Avon, that it has to end this way. But then Su Lin runs in. This was hilarious. By the way, Cancer, the fake Cancer, is just chilling there. And Peary explains that she was just an actor that Sutherland bought from the slave market for her.
He was just going along with this. It's like, well, I guess this is my best bet, or, you know, whatever.
But this is hilarious. Su Lin runs in and then flicks the crab off of Avon with her gun, and it lands on Cancer's arm and bites her. And then she screams, and she's like, ah! This is another kind of lazy moment, because this whole scene is just kind of like, there's no energy behind the whole thing. It feels very flat.
Yeah. We didn't mention the extremely weak slap that Glynis Barber does.
And that whole scene where they're in the bridge and
what, Peary breaks down, or
no, she slaps her, but then like Su Lin turns to Tarrant and is like, you just need a good slap to sort out a hysterical woman. There's only two ways to sort out a hysterical woman. You either slap her or you kiss her. And I wasn't about to kiss her. And Tarrant's like, yeah, well, we men don't do that. And Su Lin's like, yeah, when men fight, it's just good old boys having fun, right? And then Tarrant proceeds to immediately fight with Avon right after that.
There's also, we skipped the entire sort of subplot where Tarrant is like really into Peary stuff, and he's just a complete gullible fool.
Yeah, and Avon calls him out on this because Tarrant's like, your much vaunted brains that got us into this situation. He's like, yeah, they're almost as much trouble as your much vaunted brawn. Tarrant's like, what do you mean by that? And Avon's like, I didn't mean anything by it. Tarrant's like, I said, what did you mean? He's like, I didn't mean anything by it. Then they're fighting, and Su Lin's like, guys, stop, in like the least enthusiastic way ever.
Yeah, and I don't know why, like, Glynis Barber, this is her first like real episode where she gets to play a real major role as her own character. And not just Callie transposed onto Su Lin. But she doesn't, like, go for it, you know? She doesn't relish it. She doesn't do what I would consider a good job with it.
Well, again, I think that's just, like, byproduct of this whole episode just being on the cusp of greatness, but not getting there.
Yeah, it must have been, like, the directing or something. I don't know. But anyway, that's how they sort that out.
Yeah, the directing is really all over the place. There's a lot of really flat shots, but also a lot of like really cool shots, like the one where Avon's running through the corridors and it's lit up like orange, blue, and red. Like those kind of things look really cool. The space battle looks great, but then there's just like, you know, when she runs in and she flicks the crab off and it's just all very flat and lifeless. It's really weird to me, like how it flips between that so much too. But yeah, Peary dies. She kind of overacts.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did you think about, God, what was her, Caroline, something or the other?
Yeah, Caroline Holdaway.
What did you think of her acting? Because at the beginning of this, you know, before I realized she was Cancer, I was like, wow, this is not a good actor. Like, And then you realize, all right, she's acting this character,
Yeah.
playing this role. So I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But even still, even when she becomes cancer, is like,
It's
all
still
right,
kind of overacted.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't. It was just kind of. I don't know how to describe it. Just weird. Overacted, I think, is by far the best word to describe it to me. I felt like.
yeah, I think so.
But then Sutherland also when she's like talking to Avon, Sutherland says this line. She's like, "Oh, by the way, the whole ship is bugged." And I was like, "Okay, so shouldn't you warn Peary them that Sulin has told Tarrant that Peary's cancer, or do you just like want to keep that information from her?"
Maybe she just doesn't care. She's just like sitting back, leaning back. Like, all right, how's this all going to play
also
out?
since Peary's like, Sulin's dead by now. Like, Sutherland, don't you want to like, maybe tell her that Sulin's not dead? Don't you want to like, I don't know, help her out a bit?
Maybe she's just totally bluffing. He's like, yeah, by the way, I bugged the whole ship. Because we, the new Federation, definitely have the budget and capabilities to do that. We're powerful. Yeah. I don't know. I doubt it.
I doubt it. Avon then contacts Scorpio and tells him to come back maximum speed. And
because this is now they start this like race against the clock of who can get to the cancer ship fastest.
First, yeah.
But it like lacks any energy that it could have had.
It lacks any energy, and it has like the most underwhelming like ending to it because the explosion is like the explosion's like all right, but then Serverland's celebration is like it's like everybody on the ship just left, and it's just her and her like Travis replacement for the week, and they've got a glass of like champagne, and they're like, "Cheers," and that's it. There's like. She doesn't like actually celebrate this.
Yes,
and we're supposed to believe that Avon, Tarrant, and Dana are dead, at least for a moment, right?
Yeah.
But I don't buy it.
And actually, I was going to say, if Avon wasn't on the ship, this is a moment where you could be like, oh, like, shoot, did they just kill Sulin and Tarrant?
Yeah. But, I mean, even still, you wouldn't believe that because, like, Serverland's celebration is so, like, underplayed. And you're just like...
I mean, it was a depressing work party. Ever been to a depressing work party?
No. I haven't been to a work party in my life.
Well, almost all of them are depressing, so there you go.
But you would think Serverland just killed her biggest rival. She even says, like, a universe without Tarrant and Avon is going to take some getting used to. And it just lands completely flat.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we cut to Avon and Tarrant, like, lying down in Scorpion, like, you cut our escape pretty fine there. And Dana's like, well, we weren't sure if we heard you right, but we just thought it better to assume that we did. And then I think Dana's like, oh, so what happened? Villa is keenly curious to find out what happened to that little girl you had. And then Sue Lin just turns to Villa and's like, everything sweet has a habit of hurting you, Villa. And that's the line it ends on. Guess Tarrant wasn't the only one who was infatuated with Peary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it ends.
That feels like a very...
Even for a Blake 7 ending, that lands completely flat, too.
Well, it does feel more like a class... This episode as a whole, I think, felt a lot more like a classic Blake 7 episode. Like, not like a Series C, like, weird episode. Not like a Series D, like, questionable episode, but like a classic, good old Series A.
Good old Series A.
Episode.
I mean, but again...
For better and worse.
I know I've said this a lot this episode. It was, like, on the cusp of being, like, a classic to me. And it was, like, it was almost there. If they just made a couple changes, tightened up some of the editing, tightened up some of the camera work, and then just... Maybe if Paul Darrow and Glynis Barber like actually put them all into every scene, because Paul Darrow did a pretty good job in most scenes, most but not all. Then maybe this could have been like really spectacular, like really something to talk about. But as it stands, I was just kind of like, oh man, that was good, but like could have been great. I think this is one of the first episodes of Blake 7 where I've really been like, man. I'm really, like, upset at how this came out.
This is one of the only ones that I would really just describe as mediocre.
That's fair. In terms of how would Terry Nation do this episode, like I said, I was thinking about this, and like you said, it feels very Series A, and for that I feel like Terry Nation wouldn't make a lot of changes. It does that thing that Terry Nation like to do, where he puts Servalan in like one of the first scenes of the episodes. That this is going to be a Servalan episode. He reveals Servalan right off the bat.
Sleer. I mean, even Avon calls her Sleer in this one.
Yeah, he calls her Sleer, but only once because he calls her Servalan the other time, which is interesting. But I was thinking like maybe Terry Nation would have had Cancer be Travis.
Yeah, and
like sort of a surprise reveal that Travis is
still alive,
or still
and
alive.
is now not working with Servalan again. Seems to switch, flip-flop back and forth every week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that working as long as Travis isn't working with.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, I mean, yeah, because Cancer was working with Servalan.
I mean, that's about as far as I think Terry Nation would have made this episode any different from what we got.
Yeah, but that actually, I mean, now that I think about it more, that would have been really cool because, like, Travis would have been going off doing his own thing, became an assassin, I guess, and is now working by himself, but still works with Servalan sometimes. That would have been cool.
And like I said, that's about as far as I can see this being any different if Terry Nation wrote it. And even that is only like Terry Nation really likes to bring back. Terry Nation, I think, of all the writers on the show, likes to have that recurring villain the most. When you look at when Terry Nation starts to write less episodes, I think there's a pretty obvious trend that Servalan and Travis tend to become less of a focus of the series than they were in, say, Series A and much of Series B. Series C is when Terry Nation really starts to drop off writing episodes.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I feel like this episode, the only difference I can come up with is that, Cancer is Travis. And then otherwise, I think it plays out in much the same way. Maybe, Piri is the actor in this and Travis is controlling things from behind the scenes and then he pops out. It's like, I'm Cancer. Again, like Keon said,
kinda
that
like
line's
Voice
very
from the
Star
Past.
Wars. Yeah, kind of like Voice from the Past, but that line is very Star Wars, and Piri's like, no, I am Cancer. And Avon's like,
Does she say that exactly? I don't remember.
She says, I am Cancer. Or I'm Cancer, I think she says.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the Terry Nation version of Assassin.
Yeah, I didn't have, I mean, like, I think I agree that this would have been very similar had Terry Nation written it, and yeah, I mean,
it's interesting that
major for this.
Yeah, our Terry Nation segment for this series seems to be a Terry Nation would do Series A again, but slightly different.
Well, that's what he did for Series B. And C to some extent at least, although less so, far less so actually.
It is
actually not really.
It's
I take
interesting.
that back.
I was going to say Series C is so far from. I was going to say it's interesting that a lot of these episodes are feeling very Terry Nation-esque, and I think that probably comes down to the fact that Terry Nation established the style, quote unquote, of Blake Seven when he wrote every episode of Series A.
Yeah.
And the really weird, like, experimental episodes tend to come from someone like the ones that like break the mold of Series A, Terry Nation, Blake Seven, tend to come from someone like Chris Boucher or sometimes Bob Holmes, but not often. Alan Pryor, I think, also kind of breaks the mold quite a bit too. All right, so we have 2 emails and 1 comment on the website this week to respond to. We're gonna go do the emails first in the order they arrived, and then we'll do the comment on the website. So the first email that arrived was from RG. Actually, other way around. First email that arrived was from Sergeant Drano, beating out RG by exactly, I think, 58 minutes, I want to say, or 57 minutes.
Huh.
So, Sergeant Drano, subject line is Assassin. Hey guys, so Assassin. Costume changes. I like Tarrant, Villa, and Sulin's outfits better, but Avon and Dana's not so much. You? What the hell is that Federation captain wearing? Lol, Avon pretending to be a nice victim. Hey, Avon gets thrown in with the first doctor, and Avon actually keeps his word to rescue the guy. Yeah, after freaking Star Drive, that's a surprise. Yay, they remember Dana's vendetta against Servalan this week. Why did they board Cancer's ship instead of just shooting the crap out of it? When they opened the cockpit door, why didn't they shoot the dummy in the back? Why did they run all the way around to the front? How come Cancer doesn't just shoot them as soon as they put their guns down? How come Avon doesn't shoot Cancer as soon as the woman attacks him? Bizarre staging, to say the least. Sulin, Avon, what is that terrible noise? Lol. So let me get this straight. Cancer is loose on the ship somewhere, and Avon's idea is to fly Cancer's ship back to Xenon base. Why? Why don't they all just call Scorpio back, teleport off, and blow up the ship? That's the nearest thing you've had to a good idea since this business started. No, it isn't. Lol, Avon got Spock pinched. Were you guys at all surprised by the reveal of who Cancer really is? So fake Cancer was an actor ridiculously dedicated to his role, and real Cancer's plan was to get them to take her back to Xenon base, which they were going to fly the ship there earlier, but Servalan disabled the system. So all in all, a sloppy episode, not exactly cringeworthy, but full of Lost Jedi levels of stupid plot holes. 2 out of 7. Sergeant Drader stations on the door. P.S. When you guys finally do get done with Blake 7, I highly recommend your next series be Lex. Setup kind of similar, crew of renegades as super ships, really dark plots, pretty good humor too, not over long, 4 series just like Blake 7, 61 episodes compared to Blake 7's 52. Overarching plots, great characters. Most importantly, I think it would fit well with you guys' discussion style. It also hasn't been done overly much in the world of podcasting.
Yeah, let's just go in order.
Yeah, let's go in order because I wanted to counter some of your questions with my understanding of the plot. Why do they board Cancer ship instead of just shooting the crap out of it? Because Avon said he wanted to use Cancer as bait to get to Servalan. He wanted to capture Cancer because he wanted to trade Cancer for Servalan at that point, because at that point
he had to kill her himself.
Yeah, he wanted to kill Servalan, and he couldn't get to Servalan before they got before Cancer got put on their tail. So he decided he was going to try to use Cancer as bait to lure out Servalan, which is why they didn't shoot the dummy, because they needed Cancer alive to get to Servalan. Cancer doesn't just shoot them because Cancer wants to get to Xenon base. Also, fake Cancer doesn't shoot them because he's just an actor who doesn't actually kill people.
He's just way in over his head. Some of your other questions, though, I don't know if you got all of them, but I don't know, some of them were just like, I don't know, it's a good question.
Well, again, like, why don't they just blow the ship up? Because they need Cancer alive to get to Servalan. Why do they decide to fly it back to Xenon base? They couldn't call Scorpio. That was the thing.
Where they're the most powerful, I guess.
There was that interference with calling Scorpio.
Yeah.
Like when they called Scorpio and Servalan attacked them, Scorpio didn't even know if they heard them right. So there was some sort of implication that they couldn't even contact Scorpio anymore.
Yeah, well, I guess it's just to rendezvous / like go back to where they're at their most powerful.
Yeah.
Regroup, so to speak.
But you rated the same thing as Animals.
I don't know about that.
I wouldn't even put them close. Also, you described Animals like in a way more negative light than you did Assassin in this email, which makes me wonder about your grading scale, Sergeant Drano. But all in all, I think you do actually make some good points. I do think you have good points about the idea not being the best, because I agree, it's not. And there are some questionable things in the episode. I'm glad that Avon keeps his word to save.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned before, we were pretty surprised and pretty unsurprised at the reveal at who Cancer is.
Well, you were less surprised than me because I thought it could be the guy whose name I'm forgetting now because it's been a week. But then once he ate it, I was like, yeah, well, she's Cancer. As
for Lex, the show you recommend, we've been getting a lot of recommendations for shows we should watch and record podcasts about recently. And, I've been replying to people in this way, and I don't think we've ever really talked about it too in detail on recording, and we're probably not going to do so right now. But we've been throwing ideas around there about starting a general science fiction / fantasy podcast where we'd watch probably mostly older shows. Sort of
and not necessarily only British.
Not necessarily only British, but I think we'd lean towards that.
Probably.
Just as something we can set up where we don't have to set up a million podcasts to watch a bunch of different things. But
and also for smaller shows like The Prisoner, which only has like 18 episodes.
17? I don't know, something like that. I wouldn't want to do a podcast on The Prisoner, though. I mean, it's...
But just as an example, a show that has such a trivial amount of episodes that making a podcast about it would be like, it'd be more effort than the episodes would warrant.
And that would be a seasonal thing, right? It wouldn't be like this where it's every single week.
We'd do like, and iTunes supports seasons now. So a season quote of the podcast would be like the entire run of one of these shows.
Right.
And then there would
season
be a break.
1, The Prisoner. Season 2, whatever the case may be.
X-Files or whatever. Not
X-Files is
a huge show, but that was just the first sci-fi show I thought of that wasn't Prisoner.
Not necessarily just sci-fi, too. I think we can branch out into like more fantasy and horror type stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe even real... Well, no, I don't know.
Well, I think we'd want to save anything that's like realistic or sitcoms for its own podcast.
Stuff.
Police procedurals definitely would have to have its own podcast, I think. So then we have an email from RG, Dear Zenith Assassins. That murder was unconfirmed. I was never indicted for that murder. The way Jacqueline Pierce walks while she is wearing her black dress in Assassins is delicious. Was it smart to leave all the young ones unsupervised on Scorpio? They'll just giggle and muck around the whole time. The whole they only put you up twice, then cross his neck with finger shtick makes no logical sense to me. Wouldn't they just sell off unwanted slaves extremely cheaply? Any money is better than a dead slave. The slave auction with Servalan is one of my favorite Blake 7 scenes, an instant of how to do exposition in an entertaining way. Pretty sure I saw a lot of it on blooper reels too. Avon's fellow prisoner is another good actor in this episode. It's Richard Hurndall. Fungus soup is very reminiscent of food in the Doctor Who story The Green Death. The slave owner has an amazing six-pack, just saying. Nice tumble work from Dana. To coin a phrase, pretty sure Avon isn't the first person to say that. I like how Avon just sits there and watches Tarrant rumble cancer. Sulin does the weakest slap I've ever seen on his hysterical friend. Come on, girl, put some muscle into it. First rule of horror films, never split up. Sulin decides to conveniently sit on the floor. I did get fooled the first time I watched this and didn't realize who Cancer was. I must confess that I always find the scene where Sulin flicks the crab onto Cancer, then she dies, to be hilarious.
Yeah, it was.
Drinks all around at the end except for Villa. Where is he gone? Was Michael Keating sick that day? I quite like this episode. Down and safe, RG. In regards to they only put you up twice, I disagree that any money's better than a dead slave, especially when you're paying to feed the slave.
Paying to feed the slave.
You're paying to keep them somewhere, right? Unless you own the building, but even still, that's space that could be taken up by a slave that'd be sold off quicker.
Sure.
From a strictly economics standpoint.
Yeah.
Which is a cruel way to look at it, but the slaver doesn't seem to have any empathy, so.
I mean, you have to basically lack any, feeling for your fellow humans to, be involved as a slaver anyway, right? I mean,
yeah. I agree. Otherwise, good points. Nice you brought up some Doctor Who connections there, which we're always looking for. Fungus soup looking like the Green Death. And yeah, that scene where Sulin runs in and flicks the crab is completely hilarious. If you listen to our episode, you realize that we couldn't keep it together when you described that scene. So, and now we finish off with one last little comment from David on our website. There was originally a plan for a season arc where the crew are trying to recruit experts to their cause, which is abandoned early on. Some of this survived in the episodes, Dr. Plaxton, Justin, and Muller, for example. I suppose they dropped it because it would become predictable and boring pretty quickly.
We talk about this more next week, but it seems like they just dropped
an explicit reference to that.
Right, because it seems like a lot of that is still in there. They're still going around. They're still trying to recruit Justin, trying to recruit Muller, Plaxton. We just don't ever get that little tidbit of all right, here's the mission, guys.
Yeah. Because there definitely is this recurring theme throughout the season that there's an individual at the center of each plot. Traitor did it too with, what's his name, the crazy scientist who developed the drug.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
oh, man,
as did Rescue with Dorian.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking about this, we've made mention to this what if scenario where Sleer is a big reveal. What if they were trying to find Sleer for some reason?
Because Sleer is some
great
genius or instrumental figure, almost like a Blake-like figure, but then they find Sleer and it's actually Servo.
Yeah, exactly. Man, that would be so good.
That would be so cool. Bummer we didn't get that.
Good thing we have our Fantasy Blake 7
It's true. It's
planned.
a good thing we have Fantasy Blake 7, which is a perfect segue into describing what that is. Basically, we're asking for our fans to, and even if you're not a fan of Zenith, you can email us, I guess.
Yeah, anyone. Email, Facebook, Twitter, or leave a comment on the website.
Just, kind of pitching your fantasy version of Blake 7, like fantasy football, but for Blake 7. Who do you want playing the characters? Who would you have doing scripts, script editing, producer, whatever you want?
Story ideas. And you can set this in an alternate history where Series E happened, I guess, or a reboot or something. You can do whatever you want. Or
from the 80s, in the era of Blake 7, if you could cast anyone, who would do it? If you could draw from any era, who would you cast?
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want with it, really. It's very open-ended, and it's open-ended intentionally.
Right.
And on our final episode, which we'll be releasing the week after The Way Ahead, we'll be releasing one final wrap-up episode for Zenith. On that episode, we'll be going over people's fantasy kind of Blake 7. We'll be pitching our own as well.
Yeah. And just reflecting on the
And
podcast,
just reflecting
probably.
on the podcast and the show and looking back fondly on what we've done. Looking back fondly on how we burned ourselves out.
So again, the 4 sort of channels you can pitch your idea on, or email, Facebook, Twitter, and leaving a comment on the website.
Anyway, you can email us at drdecorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Assassin. At least it's obvious again this week what the one-word title refers to. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching games. But until then, the end.